see you guys. As I like to say, good evening this evening, and then when I say that, maybe you can yell it back. So, good evening this evening. That's awesome. Hey, let's talk superpowers for a second, okay? I'm framing up your mind. Superpowers, all right? So, what superpower would you want? Maybe to be invisible, maybe to read minds, like I'm reading yours right now. Or not. One I thought of was the ability to talk to animals. Like that would be a cool superpower. Or maybe to fly. Maybe that's your superpower, right? So here's the thing. I want you to get this is so uncomfortable for me when I have to do this, but smile at someone around you. Smile. You got to smile. And tell them the superpower that you would choose. You only get one. Ready, set, go. Thank you. All right. So, I think there's a superpower that I want that all of you also want. And that superpower is to be in control. I think there's something inside of us as humans is like, if we could just control it, we good. And I thought about this morning when I was driving because I thought, if I was in control of the people that walk really slowly in front of me and I can't get around them, or the people that drive really slowly and you can't get around them and you're in a hurry like I was this morning and, in the Spirit of God and everything, I was like, I know you're slow right now, but move! Like, please, just move. That's all I want you to do is just like maybe five degrees faster. Or maybe you want to be in control of that moment when, you get like perfectly comfortable in bed. Have you ever done this? Perfectly comfortable, and then you realize the remote control is across the room. Oh, I wish I was in control of the remote in that moment. So anyways, a little more serious, when we're kids, we wish we could control our parents. And when we're parents, we wish we could control our kids, right? We wish we could control the amount of pain that we're going to feel in life. We wish we could control the amount of money we're going to earn in life. In fact, we wish we could control the pain or the suffering or the health of those closest to us in life. And in fact, like this week, our friends Adam and Susan found out that their 7-year-old son, Grayson, has brain cancer. And I wish that we could control opportunities in life. Like some of you I have a friend that was at a job interview this week. And you wish you could control the opportunities. But the reality is that we all face is that we're not in control. That we don't have control of those things except for one thing. It's a 4-letter word, Love. We actually have control of this one thing that love is an unstoppable movement that we actually have control of. And that's why we say historic exists. This church, this thing, this movement exists so that we can inspire, compel, collaborate, and bring, 4-letter word, Love, that helps to shape people and shapes the city and shapes the world. In fact, at Historic, we say this: we exist to love like Jesus over and over again. Now, if you're new with us today, it's an honor to have you. It's an honor that you have chosen to trust us with your time. So thank you, and thank you for being here. If you're watching online right now on Facebook, we've seen New Mexico, Austin, Myrtle Beach, Canada is online probably. So thank you guys again for being here with us, and it's always an honor to be served by Gillies, and I want you guys to know that if we don't love Gillies, that would be like a bad start for Historic. So, man, I'm so thankful for Allie and those that serve us with Gillies. And it was, I don't know how many months back, maybe 6 months back, that we entered into a contract with Gillies. And, it's like Historic's going to do this and meet at this time, and Gillies is going to provide this and do this at this time. And we entered in, but we knew that Gillies is this huge entertainment venue, and they have things that they've booked more than a year out in advance. And so we knew there would be some big events that would mean that we wouldn't have church here at Gillies on a certain weekend or something. And so this year we've got two. We've got October 21st coming up, and we've got November 11th coming up. And what's cool about that is it gives us an opportunity to do something different in the community. So October 21st, I'm telling you now, and you tell all your friends, we won't meet for actual church here at Gillies. We will meet at this amazing coffee shop called Full City Rooster. Now, Michael and his team, they're amazing, and we hope to do some really cool stuff there. One of my favorite things that's going to happen on October 21st, okay, so write this down, take a mental note, invite all the people that you know, is that Chocolate, Alicia Watson, is going to preach. She's going to preach October 21st. Now, don't clap too loud because I'm the preacher here. No, I'm joking. But no, I'm so excited because her perspective and the way she empowers people, it's going to be amazing. And so we look forward to that moment. Also, I look forward to November 11th. You should mark it on your calendar. We say we're a community first church, which means if the community doesn't feel like we serve them, we're doing it wrong. And so what we're going to do, some people think church is like a Sunday morning event. It's a once-a-week thing, and we don't think that. We think it's an everyday, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week lifestyle that's loving like Jesus. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have church, but we're just going to go out into the community and serve. That's church. Church is not a building. It's not a place. It's not some kind of structure in a box. It's a people movement of love in your community. That's what the church was actually intended to be. And so November 11th, we're not going to meet in Gillies for church. We're going to meet out in our community and serve. So I just want you to put a placeholder on November 11th, and then we'll reveal details. We've already locked down some serving opportunities, and they're family friendly. So if your kids are with you, your kids can come and serve with you. So mark that down on your calendar. Make a mental note. During the time we would normally be here at church, we're going to be out in the community, which is really cool and fun. We're looking forward to that. All right. So today we continue our series, and we're kind of actually ending our series today called We're Starting Something. And we started with starting something historic, and then inclusive, and then fresh, and now we're concluding with starting something unstoppable. And I've invited a local artist. Her name is Joy. Joy! Joy, 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 joy down in our hearts. All right, so I've invited a local artist to express the idea of something unstoppable during the message. Now, this is crazy, different. And you may have never been to a church that's done this. I don't know that I have. But anyways, you guys can pay attention to me, but if I see you wandering over to her, I'm cool with that. Anywhere else, you'll be extracted. No, I'm joking. So I'm glad that Joy is here. And you know what? What we're going to do is she's going to paint, and then at the end, if you love her painting and you're like, that needs to go in my house or in my office or whatever, then you can buy it over here at the lab, and all the proceeds are going to go back into serving the community, just as my heart and Joy's heart is for the community. So, sound good and fair? Here we go. Unstoppable. I think it's probably better to say that we're joining something unstoppable, or we have the opportunity to join a movement that is unstoppable, because thousands of years ago, I'd say in human history, probably 4,000 years ago, there was this moment in human history where God intervenes and says, hey, humans, I appreciate what you're doing, but the movement is moving towards violence and oppression and manipulation, and I'm not really feeling that. So I'm going to interrupt this guy's life named Abraham. All right, follow me here. Abraham, I want to interrupt your life, and I'm going to ask you to leave everything and start something new, something fresh, something inclusive, and something unstoppable, because it's going to be built around this 4-letter word called love. And this whole movement is not going to be about violence. It's going to be about love. It's not going to be about dividing. It's going to be about uniting, and it's going to be a new tribe that blesses people. It doesn't necessarily hurt or divide or make people less than. And so I want to start something through you, Abraham. And so then Abraham starts this movement, right? Well, before we talk about how he started that movement, back to Gillies and Historic. So Gillies and Historic entered into a contract. Gillies, you do this. Historic, you do this. We shake on it, done. We sign on it, done. And here's the thing. If you don't do what you said you were going to do, my lawyers and 911 is going to get called. The cops are going to come. And if I don't do what I said I was going to do, your lawyers and 911, the cops are going to come. And that's how our justice and legal system works. Does anybody think that's how it worked 4,000 years ago? Negative, Captain. That is not how it worked. So what did you do? What did you do if God interrupts your life and says, hey, I want to contract with you, Abraham. We're gonna create something here. How would you do that back then? Well, it wasn't called a contract. It was called a covenant. You created an oath with another person or another individual. And here's how that played out. So if you're a little queasy, here we go. First, you got a bunch of animals together, okay? Second, you cut them in half. Third, yeah, some laughter in the audience there. Third, you put half on this side and half on this side, and you create an aisle, okay? Now, fourth thing you do is after you create the aisle, you stand beside each other. So Historic here, Gillies here, and Historic says, we're going to do this, and we're committed to doing this. This is our oath. This is what we're going to do. We're going to hold up our part. And Gillies stands up, and they say, okay, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to hold up our part. And then you walk through the aisle together. And as you're walking down the aisle, you say these words: may I become like these animals if I fail to uphold my part of the oath. Now, that is an interesting way to do it. That is a very, you feel the seriousness of this, right? This covenant. You feel the power and the significance, the poignantness of this moment. This is actually a little harder on you than 911 being called. And what's interesting is that a little side note here for you history buffs. This is where we today in our culture we're going to cut a deal. When you say you're going to cut a deal, that actually goes all the way back to Abraham and God cutting a deal. Now, fast forward, Genesis chapter 15. Now, this is the first book of the Bible, the first book of the Torah. And Abraham, God is talking to Abraham, and he says this: look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he says to him, so shall your offspring be. In other words, I'm going to start this movement through you, a new tribe, and your tribe is going to last for generations. Like this whole love thing, this whole being a new and fresh and new way of doing life, like this is starting and it's not going to stop, Abraham. And what's ironic about this is Abraham doesn't have any kids at the moment. Like he's not really performing his duty, and nothing's working. So it's like he's kind of laughing at God, and God's laughing at him in a fun way. And they're entering into a covenant that says, we're starting something new. We're starting something unstoppable. Let's do this. And Abraham goes, okay, good. Sounds good to me, because 4,000 years ago in human history, the gods were very detached. They were very distant. They didn't care about you. In other words, they didn't want to do anything for you. You had to do everything for them. You had to sacrifice things. You had to beg the gods. And now all of a sudden, this Hebrew God comes into human history and says, I want to do something for you, humans. I want to do something for humanity. I want to do something different. I want to actually be personal. I want it to be relational. This is totally different. This is blowing Abraham's mind, by the way, because, again, he's used to the other gods. So then Abraham's like, man, this sounds really good. And what does the Lord say to him in verse 9? He says, so the Lord said to me, bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. They're going to cut a deal. So he does it. Abraham, he knows what's going on. So he sets up the half here, half here. Here's the aisle. Genesis 15:17 says, and when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces, passed between the aisle. Now, if you know anything about the representation of God in the Old Testament, fire was one of the manifestations of God. So here comes God in that moment, and he steps down the aisle. He's saying he's going to do his part. And does the Bible say that then Abraham walked through too? No. Why? Because God said to Abraham, Abraham, I'm going to do my part and I'm going to do your part. I'm inviting you into this movement. I'm inviting you into this unstoppable thing. But I'm not forcing you, Abraham, to do what I tell you to do what I'm offering you to do. You can do it or not do it, but I'm starting something unstoppable, and I'm going to make sure it gets done. Love is going to lead the way. Now, this is pretty cool because in human history, then from Abraham, you see how some of his descendants are like, yay, let's do this, and they keep doing it. And then some of his descendants are like, no, we're not going to do this. And you see this happening, and then all of a sudden, God again interrupts human history. This is about 2,000 years later. He interrupts human history again, and he says, you know what, I'm making it even more personal. I'm sending my son. Jesus comes and shows us the idea of love through sacrifice, and he gives his own life so that we can have life, and it's this amazing moment. And right as he's kind of finishing his thing, he goes, okay, I've created some followers of this movement, my disciples, and I'm handing the baton off to my disciples. I want to empower them to keep this movement going. And that's where we pick up in Acts chapter 1. This is the inception of this thing called church, and historic is a church. So this is the inception of this thing, this movement, and here we go. Jesus says to his disciples, his followers, he says this: "You will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere." Here we go. In Jerusalem, that's where Jesus is from. This is where his people are, the Jews. There they go, right there in Jerusalem. And then he goes, but it's not going to stop there. You're going to Judea, and it's not going to stop there. You're going to Samaria, and you're not going to stop there. This movement is going to go to the ends of the earth. Yeh-rah, here we go. Jesus ascends into heaven, and his disciples, his followers, begin doing church in Jerusalem. Now, that's chapter 1 of Acts. Let's go 7 chapters into chapter 8, and where are they at? Still in Jerusalem. Yes. They've done so well of expanding. Yeah, the multiplication hasn't been happening. But in Jerusalem, the church is blowing up. It's making waves. Like the community's like, wow, this love thing. But you always know this. You know this in your own life. Just because you love something and love people and love the actual community doesn't mean your community loves you. Are you kidding me? Heck no. So there are people in the community in Jerusalem that are like, we don't like these followers of the way. No, this love stuff. Ugh. And so literally what happens is, Acts chapter 8, verse 1, a great wave of persecution began, sweeping over the church in Jerusalem. And then all the believers had to scatter. Now, where did they scatter to? Oh, yeah, Judea and Samaria. You see, Sometimes in our lives, a little pain gives us a lot of perspective that makes us progress as humans. In my own life, I've experienced some deep pain, some betrayal, some rejection, some stuff, and I'm just like, you know what? Each of those moments gave me new perspective about other people's pain, about other people and how we can continue to make progress. It helped me become a better human. And this movement that was going to be unstoppable, it helped these Jews in Jerusalem go, you know what? He said we were going to have to get uncomfortable. He said the movement was going to keep going. We can't just stay in the familiar. We can't just stay in one city. Like he said it was going to happen through us, so let's keep going. And they keep going. And the pain provided perspective that led to progress. And then, remember we started in Acts 1, the church. Acts 8, the church starts to expand. And then at the end of Acts, where is Paul? Paul is one of the leaders of the church. Where is he located at the end of Acts? Anyone know? Rome. Good answer, even though I didn't know that I heard it. Rome is where he's at. Now, if you're a first century Jew, where is the end of the earth? You can yell it. Rome. Rome is the end of the earth. Like it's in your brain, if you're a first century Jew, Rome is like way out there. So literally this movement has gone to the ends of the earth at this point. The Jesus message is not defined by one group, one ethnicity, one geographical location, one religious system. No. It went from Jerusalem to Rome. It went from the particular to the universal. It went from the familiar to the unfamiliar. It just kept spinning. And so now we see one tribe, one small little Jewish tribe, and now the movement is to the whole human race. And that is the context for everything related to our moment today. That is the backdrop. And what do we learn from that? Well, I think we learned three key things. One, God's movement is unstoppable. His movement of love is unstoppable. The ripple effects of love actions are not only unstoppable, they have restoring and healing impact on creation that is undeniable, and we see that. Two, we're invited in to join the movement. Like, that's the thing. We're invited in. Here's the thing I love about God. This God that I say I serve, the God that I serve, he invites me, but he doesn't force me. And I think that that's a beautiful thing about God. He says, I'm not going to force you to participate, but I'll invite you to participate. And that is the definition of love. The definition of love, if you're married, if you're thinking about getting married someday, or if you just have family and friends, here's the idea of love. Love always leaves room for the other to choose. Love always leaves room. That's what I love about God. And then I want to camp out here for our last few minutes. The movement is built on sacrifice. God's movement of love is unstoppable. You're invited to join it, and it's built on sacrifice. Sacrifice. Let's make a little sense of sacrifice, okay? Sacrifice, well, it makes me think of when my wife Holly and I moved to South Dallas to start this thing about just over almost a year and a couple months ago, when we came and we said, we're leaving everything and we're going to move here. And people looked at us and they said, hey, you're going to earn less money, right? Yep. That doesn't make sense. You're going to try to unite multiple ethnicities, multiple generations, multiple economic statuses, all in one place. You do realize this is America, right? That doesn't make sense, Hugh. You're saying you want to go help 100,000 kids in the city of Dallas. That doesn't make any sense. And then we said, yeah, and you know what? We're going to serve those that have been marginalized, those who have felt excluded. Women are going to be empowered. Children are going to be empowered. People that have felt excluded from the church are going to get invited in and included. And people looked at us like, are you from Colorado? Do you smoke? I'm joking. Or not. It doesn't make sense. And Holly and I began to realize that you can make sense or you can make sacrifice, but you're probably not going to make both. Because sacrifice doesn't make sense. Sacrifice is a movement that is unstoppable. But it's not going to make complete sense. That is sacrifice. You know, we talk about heaven and earth, and some of us, when we think of this word heaven, it's like, it's untouchable. It's up there somewhere. And what's interesting is that my wife and I completely believe that heaven comes to earth when sacrifice happens. That when you sacrifice for someone, that is heaven on earth. When someone sacrifices for you, that is heaven on earth. You're tasting heaven in sacrifice. And so, you can sacrifice a lot of ways in life, but today I just wanted you to know the 3 ways that we're going to sacrifice at Historic that helps you go, I either want to join the movement, I want to be a part of this thing called Historic, I want to be a part of this thing that's built on love, or I don't want to be. And you're still going to be here for invited in, and you can have drinks with us and all that good stuff, but it's just, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to do anything short of sin to share the gospel. Anything short of sin to share the gospel. In fact, there's this guy named Paul that wrote letters in the Bible. He wrote a lot of the books of the New Testament. He writes this letter to the people that are in Corinth, this city called Corinth, the church in Corinth. And he says this, I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. Now, he knew that he wasn't able to literally, physically save people, but he knew that he could share the gospel with people. And now that's a big word and it's a very churchy word, but you don't need to be scared of that word. You need to be able to, even if you don't believe in God or believe in Jesus today, which is so cool if you're here, but you need to be able to see the gospel as accessible. Like that's something you can understand. And let me help you understand it. Here it is. The gospel is what you've heard this maybe, it's good news, but let's just call it an announcement. Like if you go to a great restaurant, you announce to your friends, this was a great restaurant. If you see a great movie, this was a great movie. If you meet a great person that seems loving and caring, you're like, you need to meet this person. Like you announce things all the time in your life that means something to you. And the gospel is this great news, this great announcement of who Jesus is. He's this leader of this movement of love. It's amazing. It keeps coming over and over again. It's phenomenal. So it's this announcement of who Jesus is, but it's also an announcement of who God insists that you are. It's not just an announcement about Jesus, it's an announcement about you. And the announcement comes that you are a child of God, that you are redeemed, that you are forgiven, that you are loved, that you are empowered, that you are included. Like, it is all these things that you are, and of course the world tells you all the things that you are not. But when you know who you are, you know who you don't have to be. It means I don't have to be perfect, I don't have to be smart, I don't have to be rich, I don't have to be right, I don't have to be like somebody else. I can just be me. And that's good news. And we are going to do everything short of sin. So we are a church that's willing to do, we're willing to cross lines, overflow out of boxes. Like we're willing to go and do anything we can to share the good news about Jesus, who Jesus is, and about who we are. We're going to do that. We're also going to do for a few what we wish we could do for many. Here's what I mean by that. There are 100,000 kids out there in the city of Dallas alone, and this is in every major city around the world, that need mentors. They're home alone from 3 to 6 or 7. Their parents work 2 jobs or whatever the situation is, and they're home alone, and that usually adds up to trouble for kids. And so their kids need mentors. They need after-school programs. They need love and attention over and over again. They don't need to be fed once and then everybody bails on them. It's like, no, keep coming back. And we know there's 100,000 kids, and guess what? My wife and I, we know we can't mentor 100,000 kids. That is a joke. But what we can do is we can mentor a few, and then hopefully inspire some others to mentor a few. And the few takes care of the many. But we do for a few, we do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. And I'll say it this way. It's not what you do occasionally that really inspires and shapes change. It's what you do consistently that inspires and shapes change. And if you're consistently investing in these kids' lives, like, when's the last time, even if it doesn't have to be a kid, it could be a millennial, it could be somebody older than you, it could be anyone in your community, it could be a senior citizen, it could be an orphan, it could be a widow. Who have you had a conversation with and looked in them eye to eye and said, I see this in you. I see in you. Have you had that conversation lately? Because I believe that's what we are called to do. We are called to do for a few. I don't want you to have that conversation 100 times next week, but if you could have one conversation next week with one person and just tell them that you see something in them, it changes their lives. Don't forget this, your greatest contribution to the human experience may not be something you do, but someone you raise. And I have a friend, Jasmine. She works at Trinity River Mission. She has a daughter named Sinai. Here's the thing about Jasmine. I don't know that I've ever met a woman that is more empowering, more shaping change than Jasmine Lewis. Like, this lady is not unlike Chocolate, who does all that stuff too. So these women, they're amazing. But I've been sitting there at night lately thinking, you know what? What if Jasmine is raising a young woman that's going to do more, even more than her? And yeah, I mean, if Jasmine were here, we'd give her one big clap. But I do think about this reality that she may do even greater things than her mom. And that is her mom investing into one, and her mom can't invest into everyone. But if we as parents, which I'm going to be a parent soon, which is amazing. If we as parents, that's right, almost made me want to cuss, I'm so happy. But we as parents can shape the life of one that can change everything, which is amazing. So last thing we're going to do is choose courage over popularity. Courage over popularity. I'll tell you, becoming obsessed with what people think is the fastest way to forget what God thinks about you. Becoming obsessed with what people think about you is the fastest way to forget what God thinks about you. And we just talked about how God thinks about you. And I just feel like in our culture today, it's all about popularity. And it may not be popularity like in high school popularity, but that still exists. But it's popularity like you get a lot of likes on Instagram or on your Facebook or this or that, and you get the raise, or if you can put this person down, you look better, or if you can create this, innovate this, that you get credit for it and you copyright it for yourself. And it's all about your brand, your personal brand. And I got to tell you, man, when you say, I'm going to be courageous and I'm not going to pursue popularity, it's not a horrible thing, but I'm not going to pursue it. I'm going to pursue courage, and I'm going to pursue sacrifice. And when I sacrifice, I'm going to realize this, that when you cross lines to sacrifice for others, there are going to be people that don't like you. You're not going to be the popular one. Because guess what? You're going to go to the least. You're going to go to the lonely. You're going to go to the labeled. And if you hang out with who the world labels as, ooh, Mufasa, like You can't hang out with them, your church people. You can't hang out with those people. You know, Jesus did this. He hung out with prostitutes and tax collectors and all the people that were the last and least and lonely. And guess what? They didn't like Jesus. It's very interesting that he had courage. He chose courage over popularity, and you're going to sacrifice some likes if you give and love sacrificially. I like to say it this way: sacrifice many times is giving up something you love for something you love more. I love the fact that people might approve of me, that they like me. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's an okay thing. If it's your only thing, it could be a dangerous thing. But I think it's an okay thing. I just think I love other things more. And I think for some of us, maybe approval's not our thing, but maybe we need to lay down the need for certainty. Or maybe we need to lay down the grudge that we have against somebody else because somebody else needs forgiveness and they need to taste forgiveness. For me, one of my big struggles, and I'm just going to go ahead and confess since I'm in church, I have a need to be comfortable. I have a need to not be embarrassed. And in fact, I have a need to never ask anyone for money. It feels uncomfortable, and I'm an introvert by nature anyways, so just the thought of asking someone for money just blows my mind. And then I thought about my hopes and dreams for life. And my hopes and dreams for life are to start camps for kids in cities like Dallas that they don't get to do basketball and soccer and art. They don't get to do these things and because they can't afford it. And so I wanted to do free camps. I want to do it all over the nation, all over the world. And we started in Dallas, and we started this summer. But guess what? I want to do that, and I wanted to reach people in the margins that can't help and they don't have and they can't give back. And I wanted to reach out to those that have felt excluded and all these dreams that I have. And guess what I figured out? It's going to take money to do that. And so I spent the last year of my life just being embarrassed, constantly asking people for money. Because I love those kids, and I love this city, and I love the LGBTQ community, and I love other religious communities, and I love the city of Dallas more than I love my own embarrassment. And so I said, we're going to attack the problem. And when you attack the problem, some of the people will attack you. And I felt that. And I just want you to know, like, if you really sacrifice, if you really say, I'm in for this love thing, like we're going to do this over and over again in our community. If you're in for it, I just want you to know, like, you're not signing up for the easy route. You're signing up for the route that probably you're going to get attacked. And here's the reality to that. People can attack you, but you don't need to attack them back. Because I do think that when we attack the problem and not the people, we make the progress that we hope for. And rarely, if ever, and this is the end, rarely, if ever, do you experience the celebration if you resist the sacrifice. I got to meet this amazing young leader here in Dallas. Her name is Danae Gutierrez. She's the founder of the Harvest Food Project in Dallas. She's a single mom. She works full-time hours all week long. And on Saturdays, before her kid has soccer or games or whatever, at 6 a.m., she gets up and she goes around to local food sourcers, and she gets vegetables and fruit, and she takes it all over the city of Dallas and gives it to people that can't afford it and don't have access to it. We have 40 food deserts here in the city of Dallas, which means you don't have access, and it means that you can't afford it. And so she does that 6 a.m. every Saturday. And here's what's crazy. She told a story about this little kid that came up, and she gave blueberries to this kid, and this kid had never physically in their life eaten blueberries. And she got to see the joy and the amazement of this kid eating blueberries for the first time. I mean, can you imagine this all over the kid's face and this joy and this. She got the celebration of that moment. But she wouldn't have gotten the celebration of that moment if she didn't sacrifice at 6 a.m. And this movement that we're a part of, that we want to start, is this. It's got an unstoppable weapon called love, and that love is going to require sacrifice. And so that's what the question is today for us. Like, do we want to join the movement? Like, I have to ask myself that every morning I wake up in Oak Cliff. It's like, am I going to wake up and join the movement today? Because love is the only unstoppable movement that we can control. Now, that said, I'm going to end today's service. And if you're online, do this with us. Meditation is a thing. So I want to give us like 30 seconds of meditation. Okay? So, I'm not a weird person, but I am going to ask you just to meditate with me for a second. Now, what I mean by that is we're just going to close our eyes. And again, I'm not trying to freak anybody out because this would be weird for me. So I'm weirded out, you're weirded out. We're all in the same place. We're all human. But I just want to meditate on 3 things for about 30 seconds. So here we go. Let's close our eyes, and we're just going to meditate on 3 things. So, number 1, I want you to think of a physical place where you plan to share love this week. A physical place in your mind. Think about that. Physical place to share love. With that in mind, I want you to think about a specific person that you plan to love. Like, get that person, get their face in your mind. Make it a person that you don't normally tell that you love them. Make it a person that you don't normally hang out with. Like, who is that person that you could share some love with this week? And lastly, I just want you to think about a way that you plan to sacrifice for your work or for your family or for your school or for your community this week. Just think about like how you could sacrifice. Just meditate on that just for a second. So God, I just want to acknowledge, thank you for starting this unstoppable movement called love. Thank you, Jesus, for sacrificing so that we could sacrificing so we could have love and freedom, sacrifice so that we'd have the freedom to join a movement called love that is made flesh in human form when we get to see you. That's the picture of love, and that's what we get to do in our community. So thank you for sacrificing so that now we can choose to go and sacrifice and love on others. And it is in Jesus' name that I pray these things. Amen.